Hello, it's Diane. Today I'm going to talk about a book called Marriages Are Made in Bond Street by Penrose Halson. This was a really interesting book. It's based on true stories because this is based on the notes that were taken of the various people who wanted to be matched up and married at the marriage bureau that was based in Bond Street. It was late 1930s when it started, and it was because of the fact that one of the founders, Audrey, had been to India, been out to India. She'd been asked to marry a young man who was home on leave, and when she got out there, she found that it wasn't all sunshine and roses. He was quite boring. They had nothing in common. Luckily for her, her Uncle George was out there on a tea plantation in Assam, so she told her Uncle George she couldn't possibly marry this young man. And Uncle George came up with a bright idea that perhaps when she went home, she could set up a marriage bureau, and that way make it a bit easier for men who worked outside of the country to come home on leave and find someone who was a suitable companion that they could marry and bring back again. So originally Audrey wasn't too keen on this idea because her parents were already a bit annoyed with her because she hadn't grown up, found a nice young man and settled down as they expected. She'd flitted about having various jobs, and of course then she had to go home from India and face a very frosty reception because she came back unmarried. So she had a friend called Heather, who was a model, slightly upper class, more higher class than Audrey, I would say, and she persuaded her that the marriage bureau idea was a good one, so they set up together. The reaction of the parents of Heather was very different. Her grandmother actually congratulated her, and she said it's the first time that she'd actually done anything to please her. Her father actually came round with his friends from the club with champagne and celebrated, whereas Audrey changed her name to Mary Oliver so that her parents wouldn't find out and be annoyed with her. This, as I say, is based on true notes that they made at the time. So it's a very varied selection of people who joined the marriage bureau, and they treated it a lot differently than it sounds like they do nowadays when you read things in the news, because they actually didn't just, make a match with, you're matched up with any old person. Because they took detailed notes, they really tried to match up people to people that they thought would be suitable. And following on from that, they charged a small charge to register, and then there was a marriage fee. So if they managed to marry someone off, or someone met someone through them that they really liked and married, then there was a larger charge. But they were really quite, forward-thinking for their day, because they also had a sort of sliding scale. So if a shop girl came in looking for someone, they would charge her slightly less or allow her to pay a certain amount a week, rather than someone like an MP where they would charge him up front. And I think by the sound of it, sometimes if they didn't like the person, they made sure it was too big a charge so they wouldn't really want to join up. There was some sad stories in there and some funny stories. And it really set the era because there was such a wide variety across the classes, from a policeman who went round checking all the bombing and the rubble to make sure that everybody got out alive, to young women who had been at home with their parents and then ended up being on their own with no skills, and hoping to find someone to marry so that they could make a new life for themselves, to people eventually who returned from the war, soldiers, some of them badly damaged either in mind and body, and they did their best to match them up with people who they could go on and have a happy life with. I really enjoyed this book. There's some interesting photographs in it as well, black and white photographs, and the way that Heather in particular played the press, because she'd been a model, so they really liked photos of her, and they liked the sort of sound bites that she gave them. So I would recommend this as an interesting read if you're interested in history, or if you're even interested in the era around the Second World War, because it's hard to imagine some of the things that went on. There was one young girl who had been attacked when she was working on the bomb sites, and of course she was really in a lot of trouble, because in those days an unmarried mum, obviously went against the pale, and she didn't know who did it to her, but she came to them hoping to find a husband who would accept the fact that she had a baby out of wedlock. So, as I say, the different attitudes of the time are really well sort of explored just because of the stories that they're based around. So if you would like to read Marriages Are Made in Bond Street, you will have to either come into the library, or you can use our choose and collect service, whereby you phone us or email us and we'll pick you out a selection of books or genres, authors, just to see if we can help you to pick up books rather than having to come in and wander about and look for yourself. So let us know how you get on. I hope you enjoy the books that I'm recommending. Thank you.